watching News 24 Live. I'm Nick Pawson. I'm joined in studio by Sergio Davids from Wheels 24. Welcome to our second Wheel Show for the week. Today we are going to be discussing some road safety issues. There have been some upsetting stories in the news this week, and Sergio's going to shed some more light on it. Sergio, thanks for coming in.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with this terrible accident. I mean, on a weekly basis, as you know, we have a huge amount of road fatalities in South
Indeed.
Africa. Last month, you and I spoke about passengers in the back of Bakkies unsecured, particularly children. This week, there's been a horrific accident in Pietermaritzburg where a Bakkie plowed into a house, killing 6 children, and I believe there's 7 or so still in hospital. What happened?
Yeah, an awful situation. It's always sad to start off the year with another terrible tragedy, but at least if we try and do this, it'll highlight the plight of transporting people in the back of Bakkies. A Bakkie collided into a house carrying approximately just over 20 plus kids. 7 were unfortunately killed, 6 apparently on impact.
Sorry, were all these kids in the back of the Bakkie, or
yes,
were
at the
some
time
of the fatalities people inside the house?
No. Fortunately, in this situation, nobody in the house was killed. Many of the children are still in critical condition. 6 were killed on impact, according to EMS, and 1 later died of injuries later. It's tragic, and unfortunately, it highlights the plight again as to why we are continuing to do this. It is incredibly dangerous. And as we said in our previous clip, I mean, it comes down to 3 things: reckless driving, initiatives by the law, and perhaps a change in mindset. If we just look at what had happened, it's clear that the driver was speeding. In fact, witnesses said that the driver was apparently taking a bend too fast and smashed into the house. Now, the force you need to take down a gate and crash into a house, crumbling part of the wall, is mind-boggling, especially when you're carrying children. You know, it's always funny that we take better care of a cabinet when we're transporting it. I mean, one of the first things you do when you're carrying furniture is you make sure it's strapped down. You make sure there's nothing protruding, and while you're driving your cabinet or your furniture to the destination, you drive really slowly. You don't want to damage your goods. But when it comes to children or people, we don't take a second glance at this. Nobody's strapped down. No one's wearing helmets. Why?
So, I mean, I've noticed that the road stats, particularly this kind of thing, are really bad in Natal in particular. And do these things tend to happen more in rural areas than, because I mean, perhaps that's why it's more difficult to monitor in terms of having a sort of presence of authority to clamp down on it?
Look, just in terms of authorities monitoring this, you could make a case for, clearly this person was transporting kids on a daily basis. Why weren't the authorities watching this person? If you as a parent know that your child is being transported by a Bakkie, for instance, I mean, we know that there are socioeconomic problems. You can't always send your kid on a bus or a taxi or have a regulated driver, but you know how many children are in the back of that Bakkie. You know this. And the cops do too, which begs the question as to why they weren't there. In terms of where this occurs, in rural situations, obviously it's a lot easier for some people, not that it's right, to transport other people in Bakkies. It makes sense. You can load a lot of people in the back of them. You can take them to the site and school.
Because the roads are generally quite bad, so most people drive Bakkies.
Indeed, you need a rugged car to get around those roads. But again, what needs to be done in terms of higher level? What should be done in terms of government? If you're going to now decide that, okay, blanket ban, you cannot transport people in the back of Bakkies, which according to the National Road Traffic Act, you can transport people provided they're not paying for transport, and you're not transporting them in an unroadworthy vehicle, and that the sides are not too short, for instance. But as far as having an open top, that's perfectly legal. But to ask government to make a blanket ban on this, I don't know. What are we supposed to do? Give everybody taxis? Give them subsidies so they can get better vehicles?